South Africa needs to catch up because the truth is we're being left behind. Not if you look at a country like Kenya. Kenya has created an e-citizen platform where you can access 3,000 government services online, including all of the services that we associate with Home Affairs. They've also completely digitized their visa system. You no longer even speak of visas. You have an electronic travel authorization. And that is the kind of model we have right here in Africa. That when I came into office, I was not interested only in treating symptoms and trying to understand, going on trying to put out fires constantly. I wanted to understand the root cause. Why is it possible for someone to steal someone else's identity, for example? Why is it possible for officials to engage in corruption in exchange for money? And the answer to that is actually very simple. It's because, Home Affairs is way behind the curve. That's the truth. In many cases, these processes look like they still come from the 1980s. We recently saw the case of these Libyan nationals who came into South Africa on handwritten paper documents, visas.
So, Minister, as you heard there, top of mind for many South Africans is the corruption at Home Affairs and, of course, illegal foreigners in the country. So let's just start with the corruption at Home Affairs and how you're faring with actually dealing with those within the employ of the department who are guilty of corruption.
Well, just recently we put out some information showing that around 30 officials had been disciplined over these past 3 months. That included 2 prosecutions. It included a number of officials who had been taken various disciplinary steps, including dismissal. And of course, we continue to work closely with the Special Investigating Unit to make sure that we implement the recommendations from the Lubisi report. We saw the imprisonment of one official for 12 years recently, another one for 5 years. And so this train continues to really chug along. But I think the really important point to make about corruption, as really about everything else in the Home Affairs space, is that digital transformation is the solution. Because when I came into office, I was not interested only in treating symptoms and trying to understand, going on trying to put out fires constantly. I wanted to understand the root cause. Why is it possible for someone to steal someone else's identity, for example? Why is it possible for officials to engage in corruption in exchange for money? And the answer to that is actually very simple. It's because, as you can see on the screen right now, we have paper-based processes. We have manual processes where human beings get involved and then they can take your file and put it under the desk. They can extract bribes from you in exchange for service. That is why our apex priority is digital transformation, where we create a fully digital system that can be accessed online, but that is completely closed to interaction from the outside. That is what we've done in South Africa when it comes to online banking. It's what we've done with the South African Revenue Service. And that too is how we're going to clamp down on corruption in Home Affairs, not by treating the symptoms, but by making the cause impossible.
So your predecessor, Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi, also spoke about this, but how far along is this process in the department, and how long do you think it's going to take before it is fully digitized?
Well, Home Affairs is way behind the curve. That's the truth. In many cases, these processes look like they still come from the 1980s. We recently saw the case of these Libyan nationals who came into South Africa on handwritten paper documents, visas. That is something that belongs in a prior age of civilization. It's completely unacceptable. So, of course, the rollout of smart IDs and passports is something that happened around 2013. But since then, it seems to me like the department has fallen behind. And so what we need to do is just rapidly accelerate that process, not only to catch up and digitize everything that we do, but also to then move beyond. We want to become really world-class in how we embrace technology at Home Affairs. And we've got examples, and this is a really important point. If you look at a country like Kenya, Kenya has created an e-citizen platform where you can access 3,000 government services online, including all of the services that we associate with Home Affairs. They've also completely digitized their visa system. You no longer even speak of visas. You have an electronic travel authorization. And that is the kind of model we have right here in Africa that South Africa needs to catch up, because the truth is we're being left behind, not only in Home Affairs, but if we look at our paper-based antiquated systems really across government.
And of course, as you say, we need to catch up, but it needs to go beyond the rhetoric at this point, because we are in 2024. There has been, for the longest time, great technology available that could assist with things like corruption, because you think of something as simple as blockchain technology and how that would actually ensure that there are fingerprints along the way to see who did what at which stage in that chain. So it would be easier to basically root out the corruption in that instance, because you would know exactly which official in the department did what at which stage of an application.
Sakina, you could not be more right. And I would go beyond that to say, if we look at the possibilities of machine learning, the ability to teach and train a computer to identify a fraudulent document, for example, is way beyond what human capacity has. But I take your point. This is not something that fell out of the sky. It's been there. The question is, why have we not embraced it? And that is what we've really been working on, in addition to the many reforms we've rolled out over the last 3 months, is getting to the root of how we actually reposition the department so that it's able to actually embrace technology. So what we've done is we've put together, obviously, a vision. We're busy. We've called it Home Affairs at Home, and we've really, I think, pulled in the same direction now to say that we want to use technology so that you don't have to go to Home Affairs. Whether you're a visitor or a South African, you should interact with us online. We are now busy embedding that, of course, into our 5-year strategic plan and into our annual performance plan for the next year. And then I think the budgeting process that follows will be very important so that we reprioritize in our budget. And then the other thing that's really important, of course, is the regulatory environment. And I do want to raise this one as a major obstacle for digital transformation, not only to Home Affairs, but actually across government. And that is our use of the State Information Technology Agency, or SITA. I think this is not a fit-for-purpose institution. It tries to centralize procurement of all IT contracts. Now, if you know anything about technology, you know technology is a bottom-up process. It's a decentralized process. That's how you innovate in this space. Unfortunately, South Africa has centralized all of this in SITA, and so we are having very urgent conversations to see how we can get around this problem, how we can deal with this issue, but also how it can be solved across government, because it's not only Home Affairs that has this problem. The South African Police Service, I'm sure Minister Mkhunu would desperately love to move away from those paper dockets. Can you imagine the impact that would have? We won't lose our dockets anymore because it will all be, as you say, secure and digitized. But we're all going to have the same problem if we don't deal with the regulations around SITA. So that is a bit of a frustration and a roadblock right now, I must be honest. But we are having very serious conversations internally and at a cabinet level to see how we can remove this roadblock. Then I think we'll see really quick movement in this direction.
Really interesting anyway. You know, I think I made one video on this channel where I featured a Mozambican who spoke about how the border between Mozambique and South Africa is such that if you deport them today, and by morning, by evening, they might be back in the country. And so Leon Schreiber, I think, has kind of like a really lot of work to do, but he's doing a lot of good job. I think there's a lot. He speaks a lot about the digitization of documents, and that, you know, these visas that actually have been handwritten for a long time in South Africa now have to be digitized. I was watching yesterday night, you know, the case of I think her name was Amantle. She was a 6-year-old who was actually, you know, really disturbing, actually. I think it was reported that she was raped and even murdered by somebody who allegedly was claimed to be, I think, of Mozambican origin or but an illegal, but a foreigner anyway. And so that's actually, you know, shocked me so much. It was in the news. It's still in the news. I think it's happened in Soweto. Yes, I think that was in Soweto. And the mother actually spoke about the young 6-year-old girl as, you know, really independent, hardworking, and someone that had a bright future. But now that actually had to come to an end with such a, you know, really horrific, you know, act. And for me, I really wonder really what really goes on in the minds of many of these people who actually perpetrate this act. But anyway, it speaks to the importance of, you know, kind of like having really a tough control on these illegal immigrants, and having to be able to digitize the presence of everyone who claims to be South African or who wants to be in South Africa. Because, in this case, I think they were lucky that they found the suspect of this murder in Soweto, the young Amantle, because the community really came out. The community really came out in droves to help the police and made sure that they found connections and really connectors to clip the suspect before he escaped, probably to Mozambique or out of the country through the porous borders. But if there's a way in which the presence of people in South Africa is being digitized and monitored, just like Leon Schreiber is actually trying to do now with Home Affairs systems, I think it will really help in this kind of murders and this kind of crimes that are actually going on, so that at the end of the day, South Africa ends up being a much more safer place amidst the 83 murders a day that actually feels like a war. But South Africa is not a war, and what many have called South Africa as a sort of what might be a murder capital of the world. But anyway, I think that's where I'll stop for this video. What do you think about your Schreiber's interview here? I think it was really interesting for me, and the fact that, while one part of South Africa thinks that deportation of illegal immigrants is kind of like redundant move by Home Affairs, because at the end of the day, when you involve millions of rand that could actually be used to strengthen the border, border management, or the border, so to speak, rather than deporting, and then you see that they think that that's a waste. But at the end of the day, in my own opinion, I think it's wiser to sort of like have budget for both. So in other words, as deportations are going on, there also has to be funds kept aside to also keep on strengthening the borders, so that these the deported wouldn't actually be able to enter the way they have done in previous years. So it's really difficult anyway. I really know how difficult these things are, especially as a Minister of Home Affairs in a nation like South Africa. But share your thoughts. What do you guys think about this? Share your thoughts in the comments.